Hey folks, Tom Garrubba of Echelon Risk Cyber, back with this week's TPRM tidbit. As we start diving deeper into certain components of an assessment with respect to what assessors should be looking at, one thing that I think is overlooked a little bit tends to be asset management programs at your vendor. So let's start off. What exactly is an asset management program? Asset management is a program that identifies, tracks, classifies, and assigns ownership of organizational assets over the lifetime of those assets. And it's important to understand what those assets are in order to make sure that those assets are protected and they're able to be tracked to help prevent any undue risk that could befall that particular item. And my buddy Oliver here is crashing the video. That's okay. So you want to make sure that your vendors have a formalized asset management program that documents and maintains an inventory of hardware, of software, and information, the data that's actually going to reside on those assets. You also want to make sure they have a data classification process, which is a process for documenting an inventory of those assets and, let's not forget, their connections. It's very important for you to know and for your vendor to have a documentation as to where your data is, what channels it crosses through, everything from the network, from the routers and switches, all the way down to the actual physical location of where your data is. When we talk about the physical location, we're actually talking about a server that's housed in a server room somewhere, down to the building and the floor, to the location within the data center, down to the server rack layer. So it's always good to have an understanding of where your data is at all times. So get my cat's butt out of the way here. So talking a little bit more about an organization's asset management program, a great starting point for assessors in evaluating the program is to take a look at 5 critical components. The first one is, how do they identify the assets? Asset identification is very important. They should have some type of program, documented procedures that define the set of attributes and methods in order to identify those actual assets. Once they're able to do that, the second component would be asset classification. The program should include a structure that defines and assigns characteristics to those assets based on the criticality. The structure should be based on their information security program's risk appetite as well. Thirdly, an actual asset inventory. This inventory should be itemized, an itemized list of current assets, and it's classified based, as I mentioned, on the criticality or the sensitivity to the organization as well as to you and your data. Asset tracking would be the fourth one. It's a program that should define a method for identifying the status of those assets, which needs control tags assigned to it so you're able to uniquely track of what's going on with those assets in terms of its age, in terms of its functionality and its ability, and having an understanding of when that particular asset may be sunsetted in the near future. And lastly, asset disposal. How do they get rid of the asset? What's the procedure for getting rid of the asset? What are the policy standards and procedures, even in the event of loss? How do they get rid of that? How do they make sure that all the data, particularly your data, has been removed for it and is destroyed properly? So that's it for today, giving you some background on why it's important to make sure you cover asset management in your assessment program and asking the right questions. In a future session, we'll discuss more getting into asset management program, focusing on understanding more of these inventory components. We'll talk a little bit more about operational procedures for asset management, and we'll also cover a little bit more into detail end-of-life management practices as well. So I hope you have a great weekend. Tom Garrubba, TPRM Tidbits. Hope to see you all soon. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay warm. Cheers.